Started your Christmas shopping yet? Worried about where the money's coming from? Want to get away from it all?
We offer you escape.
You were seated around a green felt table with a dozen desperate men, waiting for the turn of a card. If it's the ace of spades, you will be next. And you desperately desire the impossible. Escape.
Escape. Produced and directed by William N. Robeson and carefully plotted to free you from the four walls of today for a half hour of high adventure.
Tonight we escape to London of the last century. A London of gas lights and hansom cabs. A London where a gentleman still valued his word of honor above his life. A London of which one terrifying incident is recorded by Robert Louis Stevenson in his unforgettable story, The Young Man with the Cream Tarts.
Oh, bored?
Or rather.
City seems to offer little amusement tonight.
Well, bottoms up. Let's be on our way.
Righto. Your health.
And yours.
Gentlemen, please have a cream tart. It's absolutely free. My compliments. Madam, will you honor me? Sir, will you honor me?
Well, now, what's this?
A young man with a tray of cream tarts. He's giving them away.
Perhaps one of the turns on the bill.
Perhaps. Shall we go?
Yes,
Sir,
let's.
I pray you accept this confection, for if you do not, I'm bound to eat it myself.
You must be crazy.
I was never more sane. You refuse?
I do.
Then there's nothing for it but my 27th tart since 5 o'clock. Now there are but 2 left. You, sir.
Yes?
Will you so far honor an entire stranger? It's really excellent pastry. I should know. I've eaten enough of them.
It is not the nature of a gift that is important, but the spirit in which it is offered.
The spirit, sir, is one of mockery.
Mockery? And whom do you mock?
Myself. However, my purpose at the moment is not confession, but rather distribution of these cream tarts. Won't you and your friend dispose of the last of them?
Yes. Yes, on one condition. If my friend and I eat your last 2 cakes, we shall expect you to join us at supper.
Supper? It's a horrible thought. I've already eaten 2 dozen of these pastries.
Very well, then we shall omit supper and become better acquainted over a bottle of wine.
I'm uncertain whether my repugnance for these 2 remaining tarts or the attraction of your invitation compels me, but I accept.
Excellent. Then let us finish off your pastry and seek a more quiet place.
How about Michelle's in Soho?
Splendid. Shall we go?
An excellent restaurant, excellent wine, and 2 excellent friends. I drink to your health.
And we drink to yours. I'm sure you will understand my curiosity, but
But you are curious.
naturally, although I suspect that your story is probably a silly one.
Oh, indeed.
You may rest assured that we are 2 of the silliest men in England. My name is Goodall, Theophilus Goodall, and my friend here is Major Alfred Hammersmith.
I like you, Mr. Goodall. And you, Major Hammersmith, though I suspect those are not your right names.
It is of no importance.
Exactly, nor is my name, so I will not divulge it. Although I see no reason why I should deny you my story. It's brief and foolish.
Pray tell us then.
It's an oft-told tale. A modest fortune which I squandered in the usual ways at cards, the horse races in Paris. Then 2 months ago, I met a young lady exactly suited to my taste in mind and body. My heart melted. I was in love too late. Yesterday, my solicitor warned me that I had but £100 left in the world. 40 of these I used last night for a special purpose, and I have agreeably spent the day disposing of the remaining £60 in as foolish a manner as I could devise.
And the future?
The future has been taken care of by the £40.
Is it not odd that we 3 should have met by the merest accident in so large a wilderness as London and be so nearly in the same condition?
Yes. Major Hammersmith, I was thinking the very same thing.
What's this? Are you 2 also ruined? Is this bottle of excellent wine the last folly, like my cream tarts?
Very nearly so. I'm perhaps a week behind you. I still have a few banknotes in my wallet, however. Here now, this bill will take care of the bottle of wine, and the others I throw into the fire.
Oh, no. You shouldn't have burned all of them. You should have kept £40.
£40? Why?
Why not 50 or 70? For to my certain knowledge, there were more than 100 in his wallet.
It was only just 40 pounds he needed. But without them, there is no admission. The rule is strict.
What do you mean? I have not yet completely emptied my pocketbook.
You are not fooling me. You are indeed ruined men, like me.
Oh, indeed.
Could you muster 80 pounds between you?
Well, let me look in my wallet. Yes, 80 and a little over.
Then you're indeed most fortunate. 40 pounds each is the initiation fee of the Suicide Club.
The Suicide Club? What the devil is that?
The Suicide Club is death's private door. It's the ultimate convenience in our modern world. It exists for unfortunates like us. Those to whom the painful agony of corrosive poison is distasteful. For those whose courage fails them when the cold muzzle chills the forehead. For those whose fear of drowning is greater than their compulsion to die. For these sensitive misfits, the Suicide Club arranges every detail. If you're truly tired of life, I will introduce you tonight to a meeting, and I can assure you that within the week you will be relieved of the burden of living. What do you say? It's more serious than a cream tart, and I suspect more palatable.
More serious, certainly. So I wonder if you would give Mr. Goodall and me 5 minutes alone to discuss it.
Certainly. I shall wait outside.
Your Highness, this adventure must stop here.
Nonsense, Colonel Geraldine. I propose to see this through.
See it through to what? Death? You forget your obligations, not only to yourself, but to your country. Prince Florizel of Bohemia cannot risk...
Tonight I am plain Mr. Godard, and so I propose to remain. And please remember, Colonel Geraldine, under no circumstances are you to betray my incognito.
But, Your Highness...
We have survived graver adventures than this one promises to be. And now, Colonel Geraldine, let us pay our bill and accompany our young wastrel to death's private door.
Here you are, Governor. Box court.
Gentlemen, we have arrived.
Here you are, cabby. Keep the change.
Oh, thank you, sir. Come on, get in.
Well, Mr. Godard, Major Hammersmith, there is still time to change your minds.
Lead on, sir. My mind's made up.
And mine.
Follow me then.
As dark as a tomb.
An apt and concise simile.
Here we are, gentlemen, at death's private door. Shall we enter?
Pray, let's.
You may hang your things in here. If you'll be good enough to wait, I shall call the president.
Of all our follies, this is the wildest and most dangerous.
I'm beginning to believe you're right.
Let me beseech your Highness
Do not forget you are my aide-de-camp.
Not your father. Yet I am responsible to the king for your well-being.
Colonel Geraldine, you're not afraid.
Certainly not for myself, but for your Highness.
Shh, quiet.
The president will see you in his office. I have vouched for you, but you must give him honest answers. The indiscretion of a single member might lead to the dispersion of the society forever. He can't afford to take that risk. Follow me. In here. He's waiting for you.
Good evening. I am told that you wish to speak to me.
We have a desire, sir, to join the Suicide Club.
Sir, you've made a mistake. This is a private house, and you must leave it instantly.
We have come here upon the invitation of a friend of yours. He's already told you of our desires. And believe me, sir, when one has come this far along the path, one is not likely to be turned away and certainly will tolerate little rudeness. Permit me to assure you, either you will oblige us in the matter, or you'll regret ever having admitted us to the premises.
Well, now, that's more like it. This is no place for men not yet desperate. I believe you, sir. But what of your friend?
My reasons are even more cogent than Mr. Goodall's. I was cashiered out of my regiment last week.
Why?
Cheating at cards.
I see. And you, sir? What is your reason for being tired of life.
Unadulterated laziness.
Don't trifle with me, sir. You must have a better reason than that.
I have no more money, and I'm much too lazy to come by any.
If I did not have a great deal of experience in these matters, I would turn you down. But I have learned that the most frivolous excuses for a suicide often cover a deep and lifelong desire for self-destruction.
Thank you for your understanding, sir.
Very well. To business. I shall read you the oath of membership to which you will each subscribe. I swear to obey without question the instructions of the president of this association or any of his appointed deputies. Realizing that desirable death could scarcely be a penalty for violating this oath, I am aware that any violation will be met at the discretion of the president by those means deemed suitable by him. Namely, excommunication from the church, loss of whatever honor still attaches to my name, and/or, when necessary, violent reprisals against my bereaved family. In full knowledge of the sacredness of this oath, I subscribe my name. Well, gentlemen?
You are in a position to enforce those penalties.
I am.
Hand me the pen.
My friend.
The pen, please. Major Hammersmith.
Thank you.
That will be 40 pounds apiece, please.
Here you are.
Thank you. And now, would you like to join the members in the smoking room?
Indeed, we would.
This way, please. Just make yourself at home. Everyone's quite informal here. If you'll pardon me, I have some other matters to attend to.
Come along, Major. Let's mingle with the company.
Your Highness.
Be quiet.
Oh, there you are. You got in all right, I see.
Naturally.
You'll never regret it.
I'm sure we shan't.
Do you care for a game of billiards or perhaps some whist?
No, not immediately, thank you. I should like just to wander around and listen to the conversation.
You'll find it most revealing.
You understand. She had always stood in the way of anything I wanted to do. And I don't care if she was my mother. She crossed me one time too often.
You may be sure
I'm not
that I
in the
would
least
never have
sorry.
joined this
No.
wretched club if I had not read The Origin of the Species by Darwin. I could not bear to be descended from an ape.
Certainly,
Too
I
ghastly to
understand.
bear, you know.
There are some men who cannot abide the restrictions of the monastery. And after the abbot discovered me, there was nothing I could do.
It's
I don't
incomprehensible to me.
What is?
Why, this talk, this boasting, this self-justification. If a man has made up his mind to kill himself, let him do it like a gentleman. Be done with the matter.
As I told you, there are some of us more frightened of the act than of the result.
There's only one man in this room who does not seem to be in a state of hysteria.
Who is that, Mr. Godal?
Why, the gentleman sitting on the divan.
Oh, yes. Yes, Mr. Malthus. Would you like to meet him?
Yes, please. These others are too obvious.
There's nothing very subtle about Mr. Malthus. He looks like death himself, wearing thick eyeglasses.
Let us discover for ourselves the reason for his relaxation.
Mr. Malthus.
Eh?
I should like to present two new members, Mr. Godal and Major Hammersmith.
How do you do, gentlemen?
How do you do,
It's a
Mr.
pleasure, sir.
Won't you sit down?
Well,
Newcomers. Newcomers. I envy you the novelty of your first visit. You will learn to relish it if you're spared. Why, my dear sir, this club, gentlemen, is the temple of intoxication. If my health would permit it, you may be sure I would be here more often. For this is my last dissipation. Believe me, sir, I have tried them all the vices. Yes. People trifle with love and ignorantly call it man's most powerful passion. Nonsense, sir, nonsense. Fear. Fear is the strongest passion. It is fear that you must trifle with if you wish to taste the intense joys of living. Envy me, sir. Envy me. I am a coward.
How, sir, is the excitement so artfully prolonged?
Oh, of course. I must tell you how the victim for every evening is selected, as well as the member who is to be death's high priest for the occasion.
Great heavens. You mean they kill each other?
The guilt of suicide is removed in that way.
Then I, or my friend, or you, any of us, might be selected this evening to murder another man?
Exactly.
But how have they escaped the attentions of the law?
The ingenuity of our president knows no limits. The departures always appear to be accidental.
Oh, it's monstrous.
On the contrary, my dear Major, it is godlike.
Oh, yes, of course.
But, Mr. Malthus, I am still in the dark as to how the members are selected for the evening's work.
Oh, of course, I forgot to explain. But I see that the others are filing into the card room now, and the play is about to begin. You shall see for yourself. Will you lend me the help of your arm? I'm quite paralyzed, you know.
Oh, of course.
Thank you. This is the moment for which I live. The quintessence of poignancy, the ultimate of passion. Coming here as infrequently as I do, I've savored this bitter taste of fear longer than the others. But my turn will come. Who knows? Perhaps tonight.
But how is it done? Tell us what to expect.
Oh, it's so simple. The president deals from an ordinary deck, playing cards, and each man turns up his card as he receives it. The ace of spades, the card of death. Ace of clubs designates the official of the night.
The murderer.
If you like. Aha, here are 3 chairs together. Happy, happy young men. You have good eyes and can follow the cards. I only make out the faces.
Is everyone here?
My friend, we still have a fighting chance to escape.
Quiet. Let us play the game.
Attention, gentlemen.
3 of clubs.
Jack of hearts.
10 of diamonds.
King of clubs.
Queen of hearts.
3 of spades.
9 of clubs.
6 of spades.
Oh, no!
It's our young man of the cream tarts.
He's drawn the ace of clubs.
I came here to be killed, not to kill. I want to
Gentlemen.
die, not murder.
I must caution the members against such unseemly outbursts.
I don't want to
Since
kill.
the ace of spades has not yet turned up, I will continue the deal.
Oh, no. I don't want this, no. I don't want this.
8 of hearts.
No. 7 of clubs.
King of diamonds.
Jack of spades.
Ace of spades.
Mr. Malthus.
That concludes the play for the night, gentlemen. Will the member who drew the ace of clubs come to my office for his instructions?
Did your highness ring?
Yes. Good morning, Roderick.
Good morning, sir.
Oh, I shall have my breakfast in bed this morning.
Yes, your highness. And Colonel Geraldine has been waiting for you to awaken.
Oh, very well. Show him in.
Thank you, your highness. Colonel, his highness will see you now.
Good morning, Geraldine. Sleep well?
Not too well.
Did I dream it, or were we initiated into the suicide club last night? Seems like a nightmare.
It was a nightmare, but you didn't dream it. Here, look at this, the morning paper.
Huh? Melancholy accident. This morning, about 2 o'clock, Mr. Bartholomew Malthus of 16 Chepstow Place, Westbourne Grove, on his way home from a party at a friend's house, fell off the upper parapet in Trafalgar Square, fracturing his skull. Death was instantaneous. Mr. Malthus, accompanied by a friend, was engaged in looking for a cab at the time of
If
his...
ever a soul went straight to hell, it was that poor paralytic.
Yes, at least he's dead and out of it. But think of our young man of the cream tarts. Last night, that lad was as innocent as you and I. This morning, he is a murderer.
Well, thank heavens we're safely out of it.
Are we?
Oh, no. You're not going to return.
I must.
You are infected with a passion of fear just as poor Malthus was.
Perhaps. Whatever it is. Tonight, once more, we take our places at the table of the Suicide Club.
Good evening. Good evening, Mr. Goodall. Back again to try your luck?
Yes, indeed.
And Major Hammersmith?
Good evening.
You are to be congratulated, sir, on the matter of Mr. Malthus. Very neatly handled.
Thank you. But I shall miss poor old Malty. He was a man I could talk to.
Yes, your bereavement must weigh heavily upon you.
Indeed it does, sir. But then it's all in the game. And now, you will pardon me, we will sit down to play directly.
The fiend. The foul fiend of hell.
Steady, my friend.
Once more, let me plead with you. Leave this evil house before it's too late.
You're very tiresome tonight. Oh, here's our young friend of the cream tarts. Good evening, old chap.
Oh, Mr. Goodall, Major Hammersmith. Oh, how I wish I'd never brought you to this infamous place. Oh, leave. Leave while your hands are still clean.
But our oath. We could not go back upon our oath.
Well, renounce it. Forget everything. Let them do their worst, but leave. Leave before it's too late. Hey, if you could have heard the old man scream as I pushed him from the parapet, the crunch of his brittle bones as he thudded to the
Yes,
pavement.
I perceive the dealing is about to begin. Shall we go in?
Yeah. Mr. Goodall, if you have any kindness in your soul, wish the ace of spades for me tonight. There's nothing left for me but to die.
Attention, gentlemen.
3 of hearts.
Queen of spades.
Ace of diamonds.
Three times around and neither black ace has come up.
We are just 13
This
at the table.
this fourth round. This will tell the tale.
And I am next to last.
Ace of clubs.
Only 4 more cards.
King of spades.
Oh, pray for me, Mr. Goodall. Pray for me. I have 1 chance in 3. Pray that I get the ace. 6 of diamonds.
And now, I have 1 chance in 2.
My friend, don't.
Silence. Ace of spades.
Very well. That concludes tonight's play, gentlemen.
Well,
Oh, Mr. Goodall. I'd give 1,000,000 if I had it for your luck.
I would sell you this card for much less if I could.
Well, Mr. Goodall, my congratulations. I am pleased to have met you, sir, and to have been in the position to do you this trifling service. At least you can't complain of delay.
Yes. And now, before I leave forever, I should like to ask a question. A purely hypothetical question, of course, since I am not a man to go back upon my word.
But you wonder what would happen if you did. If upon the turning of the card you had changed your mind and now wish to live?
Precisely. Suppose my friend, Major Hammersmith, and I elected to ignore our oath. Suppose we began by tearing this place apart.
You wouldn't even get started. The guests themselves are desperate men, but if they did not stop you, the servants, who are even more desperate, would. You would never leave this house alive.
I see. Well, it was purely an academic question.
Naturally.
Very well, then. What are my instructions?
You will proceed along the Strand in the direction of the city, on the left-hand pavement, until you come upon a black carriage with drawn curtains. In this carriage will be the member who has tonight drawn the ace of clubs.
My executioner.
Your collaborator in suicide. You will enter the carriage, and he will continue your instructions. Please have the kindness to obey him in every detail. The authority of the club is vested in his person for the night. I wish you a pleasant walk.
Thank you. But first I must say farewell to my friend, Major Hammersmith.
I regret that is strictly against the rules. No farewells. Too disturbing for the still living members. You will leave through this side door to the workroom.
But I must have the...
We won't have any trouble now, will we, Mr. Goodall?
No. No, of course not.
Your coat and hat. Your stick.
Thank you.
Again, Mr. Godall. A most pleasant walk.
Death's private door. Why didn't I listen to Geraldine before it was too late?
All right.
What is this? My instructions are to meet the coach in the Strand.
You'll take this coach right now. Get in,
Go
will
with
you?
me.
All right. Take this one away.
Your Highness will pardon the violation of his person.
Geraldine. Oh, my friend.
It was quite necessary under the circumstances. As soon as you turned up the ace of spades, I slipped out of the house to prepare for your escape.
But how did you manage it?
When I realized I could not dissuade you from attending the club tonight, I retained the services of a certain capable and reliable private detective.
But
His secrecy has been bought and paid for. His men are now raiding the suicide club. The members will be removed to your townhouse, where it remains for you to pass judgment upon them.
That I will gladly do, and with the utmost dispatch.
What have they brought us here for?
They didn't look like Scotland Yard men to me.
What difference does it make? Perhaps this will be a quicker way out.
Gentlemen,
Why, that's my friend, Major Hammersmith.
His Royal Highness, Prince Florizel of Bohemia.
That's Mr. Godard. Always thought there was something odd about those two.
Gentlemen, tonight we have removed you from a house of death to a house of life and hope. Those of you who have come to your present condition through lack of fortune will receive employment and remuneration from my treasury. Those who have been driven to this unnatural solution of their problems by the agonies of guilt must find amnesty from a power greater than mine. Power that eternally promises the forgiveness of sins, no matter how grievous. Only one of you is truly evil, and him I shall deal with myself. Where is he? Where is the president of the club? Colonel Geraldine.
Why, he should be here, Your Highness.
Begging your Highness pardon.
Who's this man, Geraldine?
The chief of the detectives.
Yes? What is it?
Was you referring to the sallow chap with the side whiskers and the black suit?
Yes, that's the one. The
Oh.
president of the suicide club. Where is he?
He ain't here.
Why not?
Well, when we broke into the little office down there at the club, we found him sprawled over the desk with a little empty bottle in his hand. He'd committed suicide.
Escape is produced and directed by William N. Robeson, and tonight brought you The Young Man with the Cream Tarts by Robert Louis Stevenson, adapted for radio by Mr. Robeson, with Paul Frees as Prince Florizel, Bill Johnstone as Colonel Geraldine, and Barton Yarborough as the young man. The special musical score was conceived and conducted by Cy Feuer. Next week,
After you've put in a tough day at the office or leaning over a hot stove, when your four walls seem to be closing in on you, next week when you want to get away from it all, we offer you Escape.
this is CBS, the Columbia Broadcasting System.
Had a hard day at the office? Backache from bending over a hot stove all day? Want to get away from it all?
We offer you Escape.
It is midnight, and you are alone. Suddenly, the room is plunged into darkness. You sit frozen with terror because something is there behind you. Something you feared would come. Something from which you must escape.
Escape, produced and directed by William N. Robeson, and carefully plotted to free you from the four walls of today for a half hour of high adventure.
Tonight, we escape to London and a world made strange and terrifying by the workings of an ancient barbaric curse, as Montague R. James tells it in his weird story, Casting the Runes.
My name is Edward Dunning. I'm a scientist. I'm used to dealing with facts, not fairy tales. I'm regarded as Britain's leading authority on medieval life. And as such, I've studied much of the ancient fears and barbaric superstitions of those times. I should have been the first to scoff at any suggestion that the ancient powers of evil, the black magic of Teutonic days, could be believed and practiced in the 20th century. A few weeks ago, I should have laughed had you told me that a curse, a hex, could kill a man. Today, I cannot laugh. It has happened to a man I know of. And now, it's happening to me. My first presentiment of danger came on that day a few weeks ago when I dropped in to see Alfred Smythe, Secretary of the National Science Association, and found him in a state of irritation.
Blast it all, Dunning. I almost wish you hadn't been so brutally honest in your report on that Carswell paper.
Why? What's the trouble?
Oh, he's such a frightful fellow. He's raising a terrible row.
You mean Carswell himself?
Yes, it's bad enough a vicious charlatan like that calling himself a scientist. But now he's taking all his vindictiveness out on me.
Sorry, old chap. It's really me he'd like to get at.
As a matter of fact, that's just what his last letter was about. He wants to know what supposed authority wrote the report rejecting his paper.
You didn't give him my name.
Heavens, no. As a matter of fact, Dunning, I haven't and I won't, and for a very special reason. Call it silly, call it crazy, call it what you will. I have an uncanny feeling about that man Carswell.
Why?
Do you know anything about him?
Nothing. I've never seen him. I only know that he wrote a paper called The Truth of Alchemy. It was hopeless.
Precisely. And why was it hopeless?
Well, besides being abominably written, it was supposed to prove that alchemy, black magic, and such rot actually exists. I think the man really believes it.
Undoubtedly he does, and that's what I mean. He lives in an isolated old house in Warwickshire. He's rarely seen elsewhere, and in his whole career he's written only two things. This paper and a history of witchcraft published 10 years ago.
Yes, of course. I remember now. So that's the man.
Yes, and that book was even worse than this paper. The man has a warped mind. I'm sure he's tried every unhealthy experiment in alchemy, witchcraft, and black magic. There's no telling to what lengths of vindictiveness a man like that might go.
Well, it does sound a bit queer, but...
Not queer, Dunning. Evil.
Oh, come. Man has a right to believe what he likes. He has a right to be angry with me. Here I've glibly scoffed at the man's life's work.
Well, perhaps I'm being overly suspicious and imaginative, but I think there's more than anger involved here, Edward. This may sound fantastic to you, but, well, John Harrington wrote the report condemning that witchcraft book of Carswell's 10 years ago. 3 months later, Harrington was dead.
But, Alfred, what's the connection?
Harrington died under very peculiar circumstances. He was walking home alone late one night, and suddenly he screamed, broke into a run, lost his hat and stick, and climbed up a tree. A dead branch gave way. He fell and broke his neck. No one's ever been able to explain why it happened.
Come now, Alfred. Surely you're not suggesting...
I don't know what I'm suggesting. I only know that after he reviewed Carswell's book, John Harrington didn't have a moment's peace. Now you've written an unfavorable review of this paper. If I were you, I should keep that fact well hidden.
Oh, Alfred. Well, that's ridiculous. Why? Yes, I laughed at Alfred Smythe's fears. How could I have known then that I was to feel the same terror The same agonized fear which gripped the heart of John Harrington as he crouched, panting, on the branch of a tree, with another moment or two of life, while beneath him the thing came closer and closer. I'd almost forgotten the incident when, a few nights later, I was riding home on a late train. I was half drowsing in my seat, barely keeping awake by looking idly at the car card advertisements. The man directly opposite me must have been doing the same, because suddenly I heard him say,
"Here now, what can that one be advertising?"
I followed his eyes to the window beside my head. What I saw brought me bolt upright in my seat.
In memory of John Harrington, died September 18th, 1937, by falling from a tree. 3 months were allowed. Blimey, what do you say that means, sir?
Well, I don't know. But I did know. Smythe had been right. The affair with Carswell was not over, but only begun. I asked the conductor about the card, but he was as puzzled as I was. He had never seen it before. The card must have been put there expressly for me. That meant that Carswell knew it was I who had reviewed his paper. How had he found out? I got the answer the next day. I was in the select manuscript department of the British Museum, doing some research in the quiet, almost deserted room. I'd been working steadily for an hour, oblivious to my surroundings, when suddenly, just at my shoulder, I heard a voice.
"Edward Dunning, you are allowed 3 months.
I swung around in my seat. There was no one within 20 feet of me. I sat for a moment, shaken, and then I stooped to pick up the papers I had brushed to the floor. I straightened up to find a stout, elderly gentleman standing in front of me.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes?
May I give you this paper? I think it should be yours.
Oh, yes, so it is. I thought I had them all.
This one seemed to have slid across the floor.
Thank you very much.
Not at all, sir. Good afternoon.
He walked slowly away and out of the door. A kindly, stout old gentleman. But there was something about him that made me feel strange. I went over to the attendant.
Yes, Mr. Dunning?
Did you notice that gentleman I was just speaking to?
Oh, yes, of course.
Can you tell me his name?
Why, that's Mr. Carswell. As a matter of fact, he was asking about you only the other day.
Asking about me?
Well, he asked who were the great authorities on medieval science. And of course, I told him you were the only one in the country.
Oh, I see.
Would you like to meet him, Mr. Dunning? I'll see if I can...
No. No, thank you. It was as simple as that. Now Carswell knew. What would be his next move? What was I to expect? I reached home at dusk, and trouble stood on my doorstep in the long face and stooped form of my family doctor.
I've had to upset your household arrangements, I'm sorry to say, Dunning. I've had to send both your servants to hospital.
But what happened?
Something like ptomaine poisoning, I should think. It's nothing serious.
Well, what could have caused it?
Well, that's the rather odd thing. They tell me they bought some shellfish from a hawker and headed for lunch. I've made inquiries, but I can't find that a hawker called at any other house on this street.
Was this the next move? If so, it had succeeded. I was alone in the house, and my nervousness increased as darkness closed in and the hours advanced toward midnight. I went to bed, but almost immediately I thought I heard something. My study door opening downstairs. I went out and leaned over the banister. There was nothing moving, nothing visible. There was only a sudden, surprising gust of warm air playing about my legs. I went back into my room and locked the door. Suddenly, the lights went out. No doubt it was only a blown fuse, but the chills were playing up and down my spine. I went over to the bed and reached for my watch under the pillow. I suppose I wanted to find out the time. I don't know why. But fumbling on the pillow, my hand touched something far different from a watch. It was like a mouth with sharp teeth and hair around it, not human at all. I fled from my bedroom and spent a long and miserable night locked in the spare room, my ear to the door. But nothing came. I was not disturbed again. In the morning, I searched the house and found nothing unusual. But the mark of fear must have been stamped on my face, for Smythe noticed it next day.
Dunning, you look as if you hadn't slept for weeks. Is anything wrong?
I don't know, Alfred. Yes, there is. Carswell knows.
How?
They told him at the museum.
Of course, we should have thought of that. Has anything happened yet?
I don't know. It's too fantastic. It's probably my mind, hypnotic suggestion or something, but like that man Harrington, I have 3 months left.
Edward.
Must have been hearing things. I'm all on edge. I don't know what to think.
John Harrington had a brother, Henry. Perhaps I'd better get you in touch with him. He might know more about this man, Carswell.
Yes, do it. And quickly. 3 months is not a lot of time. It was arranged. That night, I found myself walking down the dark street that led from the railway station to the Harrington home. It must have been along this same street that John Harrington had walked that last night. Where he had broke and run, it must have been one of these trees bordering the lonely road in which he had spent his last horrible moments. The way was dark, and there was no living soul in sight. And suddenly, complete terror gripped me. Somehow I knew that I was being followed. At first I only felt it, and then I heard it. I walked steadily on for a moment, my stomach like ice. It was getting louder, coming closer. Unconsciously, my step quickened. I could barely control myself. I wanted to scream and run. The thing came closer, closer. I confess, I broke and ran madly for my life. I was at a little side street. I turned down it, doubling back toward the railway station. I thought I would never make it. But finally, bright lights loomed before my eyes, and I think that I never have been so grateful for human companionship.
There's no need to run, sir. The 840 won't be along for another 5 minutes.
I felt very foolish. I couldn't bring myself to walk back down that street to Harrington's. I could only take the train home furtively and call Harrington next morning to beg his forgiveness. He seemed very understanding and asked no questions. Undoubtedly, Smythe had told him something about me. At any rate, he agreed to visit me at a place 2 nights later. And when he arrived and was made welcome, he began to talk about his brother.
Yes, Mr. Dunning. John was in a very bad state for weeks before the accident, if that's what it was. The principal thing seemed to be the notion that he was being followed. It became an obsession.
Yes, I know. I don't think his death was an accident.
Then perhaps you can explain it?
No. But I have one clue. Your brother reviewed a book very severely not long before he died. Just lately, I happened to cross the path of the man who wrote that book.
And his name, of course, is Carswell.
That's right.
Well, as far as I'm concerned, that does it. Before he died, John was beginning to feel, much against his will, that Carswell was at the bottom of his trouble.
Why?
Well, it doesn't make sense.
None of this does. But tell me.
My brother liked music. He went to all the concerts in town, and he made a hobby of collecting the programs. One night, about 3 months before his death, he brought one home and showed it to me. I nearly missed this one, he said. It seems he'd lost his and was hunting for it under his seat when a neighbor, a rather stout elderly gentleman, offered to give John his.
The kind gentleman was Mr. Carswell.
Undoubtedly. I started to leaf through the program and noticed on the second page some rather curious letters, carefully written there in black and red ink. Neither of us could make much of it, except that the letters seemed to be runic.
Runes. Runes, of course.
Well, John thought it might be important and debated whether he shouldn't try to return the program to the stout gentleman. But just then the door blew open and a gust of air, of strangely warm air, blew into the room. In a flash, it took the program and blew it straight into the fire.
Yes, your brother was right. He should have returned it.
There was nothing to be done then.
No, perhaps not. But do you know what runic letters mean?
Well, they're old pre-Druid script, I believe. The kind of writing the barbaric tribes used long before the Romans invaded Britain.
Yes, that's right. Casting the runes, they used to call it in the old days. Casting the runes.
What do you mean?
Well, it was a curse, a hex. In primitive England, people thought by casting the runes, that is, handing a person a piece of paper with certain runic letters on it, that you could put that person out of the way, destroy him. It's an old superstition. And the only way to lift the curse was to return the paper to the one who gave it to you, to give it back without his knowing it.
I don't believe that kind of nonsense.
Neither do I.
Then what was it that killed John?
I don't know. Perhaps his fear of the runes, perhaps brooding about it, becoming neurotic, thinking he saw things and heard things and touched things that weren't there. Perhaps his own mind drove him to death.
And what's the difference once you're dead?
No difference at all.
Casting the runes. Oh, it's rubbish.
Yes, of course, but... Good heavens.
What is it?
I just remembered that day at the British Museum. He cast the runes on me. I went swiftly to the writing table, Harrington close behind me. My portfolio was there, full of the scribbled notes I'd been working on that day in the museum. And as I took it in my shaking hands and began leaping desperately through them, one strip of thin, light paper slipped and fluttered toward the open window with uncanny quickness. But Harrington was even quicker and slammed the window shut just in time.
Got it?
Oh, thank heaven. If it were lost or destroyed, like your brother's...
Then you wouldn't be able to return it to Mr. Carswell. Yes. Look at it. It's identical with the one John got.
I looked at the flimsy paper. The characters, carefully traced in red and black, were runes, all right. That ancient language used by the Aborigines of prehistoric Britain. I couldn't decipher them. But as Harrington and I stood looking into each other's eyes, each of us could read the other's thoughts. Science or not, 20th century or not, this sheet of foolscap spells death for its possessor.
It spells death for you.
It must be returned.
Yes, I know.
It must go back in such a way that he doesn't know he's received it. That means we can't simply mail it.
No, we can't.
We must do it personally. That'll take doing.
Well, he knows you by sight, doesn't he?
Yes.
You must shave your beard. It'll alter your appearance. He might strike any time.
I have 3 months. That's what the warning said.
We've got to make good on this, Dunning. I've searched 10 years for my brother's murderer, and now he must not escape.
I dare not go near Carswell, so Harrington volunteered to keep a watch on him, to let me know when our chance came to return the runes, if it was ever to come. It was only a night or two after Harrington was there that I arrived home and found a calendar had come in the mail. When I examined it, I found everything after November 19th had been torn out. The next night, I had another envelope of the mail. This time it was a woodcut, an illustration torn out of a book, showing a dark, moonlit road and a man walking on it. And right behind him came a huge, dark shape, some awful demon creature. Under it were written some lines from the Ancient Mariner. And as I sat alone and read them aloud, I felt that now familiar gust of warm air playing about my legs. The man walks on and turns no more his head, because he knows a frightful fiend doth close behind him tread. Now I knew the face of my terror, and it was with me always. Walking down the dark street at night, I heard its footsteps behind me. In my lonely house at midnight, it roamed the halls. Like the Ancient Mariner and John Harrington, I never turned to look. I couldn't. My nerves were going, and I could do nothing but wait. The days, the weeks slipped by, and still Harrington had no plan. I checked off the days on the calendar Carswell had sent. Now there were 8 days remaining, then 6, then 3, 2, 1. It was the evening of the 18th. My last day on Earth was to begin at midnight. I was sitting alone in my living room, bathed in perspiration, fighting to keep my nerves in check. Suddenly, I felt that warm gust of air. I listened. There were soft footsteps. A shadow seemed to cross the hall door. And then the footsteps blended into a loud banging.
No, not yet. I've still got 1 day more. Not yet. No.
Dunning, it's me.
Oh, thank heaven. Harry.
What's the matter, man? What is it?
It was you knocking on the door. Your footsteps.
Yes, of course.
Oh, thank heaven. I thought I...
Look, man, you've got to pull yourself together. It's tonight we have our chance.
What chance?
Carswell leaves Victoria Station by boat train tonight at 10. I'll get on with him there. You take the car I brought and drive to Croydon. Get on the train there. And be sure to bring the paper.
Yes, I have it.
You've shaved already. Good. Everything depends on his not recognizing you.
It's Harrington. Suppose he changes his mind. Suppose he doesn't take that trip. My time runs out tomorrow.
He'll be there, and you'll do it. You'll do it well. You've got to.
I stood on the platform at Croydon, my mind in a daze. I thought the train would never come, but it did. I saw Harrington at the window. He stared coolly at me. Of course, there was to be no sign of recognition. I entered the coach and slowly made my way down the aisle to the compartment where Harrington sat. Opposite him, staring full into my face, was Carswell. He looked up as I sat down. His eyes were heavy-lidded, his face bland. It was impossible to tell whether he knew. The train started. The next stop was Dover, the end of the line. My last chance. It was time to cast the runes. It was a strange ride. Carswell and I seated face to face, staring into each other's eyes. Harrington off to the side, pulling at his face with twitching fingers. If I could have only had a few whispered moments with him to plan our strategy, but that was impossible. The moments dragged tortuously. No one moved. Then, suddenly, Carswell leaned forward.
I beg your pardon, sir. Haven't we met?
Met? Well, I don't think so, sir. Not unless you're in the plumbing business.
Plumbing? No, hardly.
I hadn't planned it that way. The words, the accent, just seemed to come by themselves. And Carswell sat back, an enigmatic expression on his face. I wished desperately to know what he was thinking. Then suddenly he got up and went out into the corridor. Was this my chance? I was about to slip over to his bags to see if there were ways to secrete the runes within them, when I caught Harrington's eye and read a warning in them. Carswell from the corridor was watching, waiting to see if we recognized each other. I muttered a prayer of thanks I hadn't moved. Carswell came back and took his seat. As he did so, wild, exultant hope surged up in my throat, for something slipped off his seat and dropped noiselessly to the floor. It was his ticket case, and he didn't see it. It was a small cardboard ticket case with a pocket on the cover. If I could just get to it and slip that tiny piece of paper into that pocket. For 15 agonizing minutes, I sat there and stared at it. If only Carswell would go out. But he sat stolidly staring straight ahead. We were coming into the outskirts of Dover, the train slowing down. Suddenly, Harrington stood up, reached up to the rack above Carswell to get his coat and bag. I stared at him blankly for a moment, surprised by his sudden clumsiness. And then I realized what he was up to. The bag, the coat, a briefcase, all came tumbling down upon Carswell.
What the devil?
Oh, I say I'm sorry. I'm terribly sorry.
You clumsy fool, you might have injured me. What were you trying to do?
Well, it was my only chance. Carswell stood facing Harrington. I reacticed down, got the ticket case, and with trembling fingers slid the paper into the pocket. He turned sharply to me, and I extended the case toward him.
Excuse me, sir. Is this yours? Yes, it's my ticket case. Where'd you find it? Here on the floor.
Must have dropped off when...
Yes. I'm much obliged to you, sir.
Not at all. Not at all. He looked at me fiercely, his rage at Harrington still twisting his face into a devil's mask. Then he glanced briefly into the ticket case and put it into his pocket. On the railway pier at Dover, Harrington and I followed a few steps behind Carswell. I felt like I might faint. Carswell went straight to the gangway of the boat, and there the purser stopped him.
Sir, does your friend have a ticket? My friend? What the devil do you mean? I'm traveling alone.
Well, that's funny. I could have sworn there was another gentleman right there beside you, walking just at your elbow.
Well, there isn't. And I suggest you see an oculist.
Oh, I didn't see. I just felt. Sorry, sir. Must have been your rugs. My mistake.
Come on, Dunning. Our job's done.
I didn't sleep that night. I lay awake and listened. But there were no footsteps, no warm gusts of air, nothing to disturb me. All day I felt remarkably free, although this was to have been my last day on Earth. But only just now, when Harrington came in, could I really relax.
Oh, Dunning, have you seen the afternoon paper yet?
I know, not yet.
Well, here, look at it. On the second page. There.
Abbeville, France. An English traveler examining the front of St. Wolfram's Cathedral today was struck on the head and killed instantly by a stone falling from the scaffolding. A note of mystery was added by the fact that although the cathedral was undergoing repairs, no workman was on the scaffolding at the time of the accident. The traveler was identified by papers found on him as a Mr. Carswell of Warwickshire.
Of course, it could have been an accident.
Yes. Yes, it could have been.
Escape is produced and directed by William N. Robeson, and tonight brought you Casting the Runes by Montague R. James, adapted for radio by Irving Ravitch and John Dunkel, with John McIntyre as Edward Dunning, Jan Wolfe as Harrington, and Bill Conrad as Carswell. The special musical score was conceived and conducted by Cy Fure. Next week,
you are trapped in a hidden valley, high in the Andes, walled in by sheer rock precipices, and surrounding you, closing in on you, is a band of blind men who want your eyes.
Next week, we escape with H.G. Wells' gripping story, The Country of the Blind. Good night, then, until this same time next week when we again offer you Escape. This is CBS, the Columbia Broadcasting System.